Hello, Dr. Jane. How
Well,
are
hello,
you?
TP. I think I'm okay.
I'm more than okay too, because I'm so delighted that you're joining me on this little chat. I want to start with your favorite animal. I know it's a dog. How many have you had in your life?
Oh, goodness. Don't suddenly ask me that because, in Tanzania, we just took in stray after stray after stray. So I suppose total throughout my life, maybe about 15. But
And
they weren't all super special, but most of them were.
and I know there's one that is super super special. Your first ever dog. Can you tell us how you got it? Because I remember you said it actually wasn't really yours to begin with.
No. And by the way, TP, not an it. He or she. Anyway, so I was walking for a lady who owned a sweet shop. She had a beautiful collie and she didn't have time to look after him. So I took him walking every day. And on our walks, we were accompanied by a little black mongrel. So he was a beautiful collie. And this little mongrel came along, black little fellow. And this sheepdog, they're supposed to be super intelligent. He was the dumbest dog I think I've ever met. And I was trying to teach him simply to shake hands. So his name was Budley. We called him Buds. Shake a paw. And I took his paw. It's a good dog, gave him a thing, but he could not learn it. And then one day, this little black dog who I'd been ignoring, when I said shake a paw, his little black paw came out. That was it. From then on, we were inseparable. But he belonged to a hotel around the corner. They knew that he came over to us. I never fed him, well, titbits, but he went home for lunch and he slept in the hotel. And he came round at 6 a.m. every morning and barked at the door, went home for lunch, and he was my dog.
Right, but it went home to somebody else's place.
He went home to his owner, the hotel.
Is this the hotel that you later on in
No,
life is a different hotel?
different hotel. Yeah.
Okay, okay. So does that mean that the dog never lived with you?
He never lived with us, no. But he was there all day, every day. And he was my soulmate.
And this was how old, Dr. Jane, when you had
Started, I think I was 10,
right, and you had him with you for
until he died. I wouldn't have gone to Africa if he'd been alive because I could not have
left
betrayed
him.
him. No.
Wow, 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 wow. Okay, so we know that chimpanzee is not your favorite type of animal.
They're too much like people.
Okay.
There's some I love and some I don't particularly like.
So, other than dogs, can you think of another type of animal that you kind of universally love or like, regardless?
Well, there are those many who are totally fascinating. The ones that I can totally love. I had a little rescued dwarf mongoose, and his name was Kip, because they go along saying, "Kup, kup, 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 kup," and I loved him. And in those days, this was when I was first out in Kenya, you could bring mongooses into the UK. You can't now because they carry rabies, but nobody cared back then. So he came home and he lived with us for years and was adored by everybody. He used to like to live under my jumper. And if somebody came to the door, you'd forget you had Kip under your jumper. And the sudden face of the person on the doorstep, their eyes went wide because their little face would peep out to see who was there.
Wow, 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 wow. So, you obviously grew up with many animals then throughout your life?
Well, yes, we had dogs, we had a cat. I used to rescue, like I rescued a little snake, and we had tortoises, rescued tortoises, all kind of little things like that.
I remember you told a story about an animal that you got the sex mixed up and you named it the wrong.
Oh, yes, that was the guinea pigs. My sister and I were allowed a guinea pig each. We were really excited. But Mum said they have to be the same sex because we can't have all these babies that guinea pigs produce. So we got what we were given by the breeder or whatever, 2 males. And they were called Gandhi. I don't know why mine, but he was called Gandhi. And Jimmy. But then
Jimmy.
Jimmy got fat.
Okay.
So we harnessed them both. We had bandage around the neck and under here. And we took them for walks outside around the cliff. And because Jimmy was too fat. And then Jimmy produced 5 babies. So she became Mrs. Jimmy.
Okay. Oh, so it just had a name change with
Just
the
a
Mrs.
name
in front.
change, yeah. Not
Okay.
a sex change.
Okay. So I have dogs, and I've had tortoises and fish and spiders as pets, but especially my dogs. When they pass, it's a terrible feeling. So how do you handle something like that?
Well, how do you handle grief? How do you handle grief when someone dies? You just have to accept, mourn, pay due respect, and somehow get on with life. But it's when a favorite dog dies, it's terrible.
Are there people that you have lost that you feel are so special that you are still maybe mourning or grieving for?
My mother. And I still hear her voice. My sister does too. We hear her voice all the time, commenting on what we're doing. And funnily enough, as I get older and older, I dream more often about my old family. It's as though they're coming closer. I don't know.
Are your dreams involving speaking, or it's all in like a silent movie?
Oh, my dreams are so varied and so peculiar and so strange, and I write them down because they're very, very odd. But more recently, I keep dreaming about my mother and her sister, my grandmother, and I don't know what dreams are. People tell you that it's just, your mind working, but I don't know.
Do you mind to share what you guys talk about? It sounds like a good party. Mom, grandma, grand auntie.
No, they don't all come together. And it's just having a conversation and nothing special. Just, it's a normal thing and you're talking in your dream. And then I wake up thinking, Mum's close by, but she always has been.
When you mentioned that you and Judy, your sister, hear your mom's voice, is that in the day or that's something that's happening at night in your
Oh, we
sleep?
hear her in the day. We hear her saying, you shouldn't do that or usually slightly reprimanding.
Okay. So she's checking up on you guys.
Yes, absolutely.
Well, I know that your mom has been, so important in your life in terms of the support that she gave you and the great advice that she gave you. What would you want to pass on from her to your children, your child and your grandchildren? Like if there was one thing that you wanted all of them to learn from your mom.
The importance of supporting someone you love. In that case, my mother supported me. She supported me with what I wanted to do. I tried to do the same for my son, even when he wanted to do something I didn't really approve of. I thought, well, this is his life, not mine. So I gave him support. I think he knew I wasn't thrilled, but I supported him. And I've done the same with my grandchildren. And we find it's true in the chimps as well. Now we look back over 64 years, and so we can see that the chimps who've had supportive mothers who would run to protect them, even if they knew they might get attacked by a high-ranking individual, the males get a higher position in the hierarchy, and the females are better mothers. So it's not just us. It's something really important for a small child. And so I always think, it doesn't have to be the biological mother, because some women just aren't suitable to be mothers. They don't seem to have that maternal feeling. But the child needs 2 or 3 people who are there to support, those who are always there for them. That's what they need for a really solid psychological grounding in life.
So besides your mom, was there somebody else in your life who
Well, the whole
provided?
family, my grandmother, mum's sister, and my uncle, her brother. He was very stern, rather Victorian, but he really, because my father went off fighting in the war, and then they got divorced. So it was Uncle Eric who really was the strong male in our family. He only came every other weekend. He was a surgeon in London in the war, but he had that strong male presence that I think made a big difference when I was growing up.
So was your dad mostly not around when you're growing up?
I didn't really know him. Afterwards, at the end of the war, he came back, he remarried, but then he became really proud of his daughter. And he used to take me around to his motor racing lunches and dinners and things like that. Very proud of me.
Wow, that's great to know. I'm trying to imagine that in that time, divorce is probably not very common,
Well, it was beginning to be.
right? So it wasn't particularly traumatic, you think, for you?
Well, initially, when I was 8,
Yeah.
they
when it
wanted
happened.
to divorce, and I became hysterical. So they put it off.
For
They
you,
put it off for 2 more years because I was so upset. And 2 years later, I understood.
at 10. Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. Would you say that you were a very sensitive child then?
Yeah. I was very sensitive and very, very introverted and very shy.
A lot of sensitive people are also very good at being empathetic. Yes. So, do you think that helped you in your studying of the chimps?
Yeah.
And
Having empathy. And yet, that was one of the things that the professors at Cambridge told me. If you want to be a good scientist, you can't have empathy. And I knew that that was absolutely wrong. I mean, you can be totally objective and have empathy. It's just a certain amount of self-discipline. I remember one infant chimp. She was the first child of her mother, and she got a completely broken, torn arm. And so every time her mother moved and cradled her, she screamed because it was hurting the arm. The mother didn't understand. And it was just so awful, and I was crying. But if you listen to the tape that I made, every minute is accounted for very objectively. But that didn't stop me being emotional. And it's the lack of empathy in science that has led to so much cruelty.
yes, I think just recently in Malaysia, we were talking about how many of our local primates, especially the long-tailed macaques, had been used for experiments, especially surrounding the COVID vaccine.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think you mentioned that actually a lot of these experimentations on animals aren't very useful anyway.
That's absolutely true. But, to go back to the long-tailed macaques, a lot of them have been imported into the US illegally, and they bring with them their viruses because they haven't been checked. And that's leading to these so-called zoonoses, disease passed from animal to human, because a virus jumps and bonds with a cell in the human. That's how we got HIV-1 and HIV-2 from chimpanzees. And we now know more and more and more that the relationship between wild animals as humans, as we traffic animals around the world, like the long-tailed macaques, or as we penetrate deeper into their environment, these zoonotic diseases are, they are appearing. And it's not just primates. We catch them also from snakes and other reptiles. And so it's our relationship with the natural world that is a big problem at the moment. But to go back to the macaques, they're not checked. So, they're not suitable for lab animals. But the thing is that now we have so many ways of testing and experimenting with disease that do not involve animals at all. And they're much cheaper and much more reliable than using an animal. And if you read all the literature, you find that very, 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 very few cures for disease or ideas have actually come from these horrible studies on animals.
Why do you think humans continue to make bad decisions, even though they should be clever enough to realize that certain decisions are inaccurate, improper? We spoke about it today. It's a kind of addiction. Do you think it's something there's something that doesn't click in their heads? And
no, I don't think
so?
it's that. I think it boils down to money and jobs. They're qualified to work with non-human animals in looking for cures and vaccines for diseases. That's how they get their salaries. And they don't want change. Because if we suddenly move to non-animal alternatives, which are better and cheaper, then they'll be out of jobs. So it's I'm going to do it my way. I want to do it my way. And it's a lack of empathy for the animals they're working with. And that's why I'm devoting so much of the remaining years of my life, could be months, I don't know, to growing our program for young people, Roots and Shoots. Because that is instilling empathy for other than human animals around the world.
Yes, I must say that, as a card-carrying, slightly obsessed Roots and Shoots promoter myself, it's been the greatest journey for me.
Yeah. I mean, it was when I discovered back in the mid-'80s that already back then young people were losing hope because of the damage we've done to the planet back then. And think how the increase in damage to the planet since then. And so it's getting more and more and more urgent that we give young people hope so that they have the energy to roll up their sleeves and get out there and tackle problems. Even though the problem may seem insoluble, they're ready to tackle it. They've got the energy, commitment, and passion of youth.
Yes.
And I'm now talking about high school, university students. But then if we introduce young children, like kindergarten, they too, and because Roots and Shoots is animals, people, environment, even little tiny wriggling 3-year-olds, they know if they want to mess about in the earth growing plants, or if they want to, do something to help animals, little cuddly guinea pigs or puppies, or if they want to help people. They know from an early age.
Would you say that Roots and Shoots is your biggest success in life?
No, that's 2.
Okay.
Roots and Shoots is definitely 1.
All right.
71 countries now, all ages, growing.
Yep.
Growing all the time.
That's right.
Our 71st was just created and is growing fast in Ukraine.
Whoa.
Yes.
That's exciting.
Ukraine.
Yes.
Yep. So I'm desperately trying, and I've found somebody who wants to grow it in Russia.
Okay.
Because I'm jumping here, but after World War II, in Britain, you can imagine we hated the Germans. We were you get this terrified feeling when you hear the German voice. And after the war, my mother allowed me to go off to help a German family so that their children spoke good English. And her friends were horrified, and they said, why are you letting your child go off to the enemy? And she said, I want Jane to understand that Hitler, Nazi, and the ordinary German are completely different. And that's the same today. So to go back to where I started from, where did I start from?
Why it's important to have Russia.
Oh, yeah, why it's important to have Russia. Same thing. The Ukrainians and the Russians will be hating each other, many of them. But the ordinary Russian, the ordinary Ukrainian, they're people like you and me. And they basically aren't equipped to hate each other. And this is something that's really, really important. It's the same with the Palestinians and the Israelis. When you get young people from the two countries together, they make friends just like two Malaysian children. And so, so building up Roots and Shoots is really, really important for me. But the other thing that I'm proud of is helping, particularly science, but everybody, understand we humans are not the only thinking, feeling beings on the planet. And we're now recognizing the intelligence of not just apes and elephants and dolphins and whales, but pigs and cows.
Octopuses.
Octopuses. Many of your listeners must have seen or heard of the octopus teacher, my octopus teacher. And if not, then please, you can find it on Netflix. And octopuses are unbelievably intelligent, and yet they have one small brain in the top of their head, and they have brains along the length of each one of the 8 arms. And so their kind of intelligence is so different, but the tasks that they can perform, they're extraordinary. They're quite amazing. I mean, there was one octopus, I think she was called Octavia. She was in an aquarium, and the staff used to go in sometimes in the morning. They'd find a fish missing, but no sign of break-in. So after a bit, they put in a camera trap, and nothing happened for a while. And then one night when they checked the camera trap, Octavia climbed out of her tank, crawled across the floor, climbed into another tank, caught a fish, consumed it, climbed out, closed the lid behind her, went back into her aquarium, closed the lid, was all innocent in the morning. That's really intelligent.
Yes. And you spoke about a rat too.
Oh, yes.
And that totally blew my mind.
Yeah. Well, people don't understand that the ordinary rat, which people, they don't like them. Why don't they like them? Because we humans leave food around, which means that the rats think, here we have a source of food. They're highly intelligent, so they come and they multiply. So we don't like them, but it's our fault. But anyway, many people now have them as pets. And maybe your viewers can watch a little video called 5 Amazing Rats. It will blow their minds. It will blow your mind. But in addition, the toy rat that I carry around with me, he represents the giant forest rat of Africa. And I've watched them being trained, and they've got this amazing sense of smell. And so they've been taught to recognize the scent of the explosive in a landmine that's buried under the ground after Africa's long civil wars. And I've watched them being trained, and they come across the smell, they give a little scratch. And of course, where they're trained, people know exactly where the explosives are. They get a little reward. And so once they've trained, and they train for a year, then they're sent off to Angola, Cambodia, Mozambique, and they're working there to help defuse they identify the landmine, and then a machine comes along to, diffuse it.
Very amazing.
Yeah.
And I'm sitting here listening to your stories, and I'm reminded that you're such a good storyteller. How did you become so good?
Maybe it's my Welsh blood. I didn't teach myself. It was part of me.
Were you like this growing up? Were you good at, creating stories,
Yeah.
having you?
I created stories. I created poems. When I was at school, what I loved best was English literature, learning about other people's writings, but then writing my own stories. And what I've found over this long life is if you meet somebody who disagrees with you, whose opinion is totally different, like political or something, there's two things you have to do. One, listen to them, because they may have thought of something or got some idea that you never even contemplated, and that's good. But if after listening to them, you feel, well, I don't think their idea is a good one, no good attacking them, verbally attacking them, because they're not going to listen to you, especially me, little old lady, they're not going to listen to me. Or when I was young, even more, would they not listen? So you've got to reach the heart, not the brain. And how do you reach the heart? Stories. Find the right story.
But you're really good at also choosing the right stories. I think not only are you amazing at expressing yourself, and also making what would otherwise be a pretty mundane story. Your choice of words, your manner of explaining what's going on, it's very engaging. And then I think you also have this superpower brain, in my view, that has the ability to see the connections between things, and then you have then the ability to combine your expressive powers with your good choice of material, and then you get Jane Goodall and her amazing speeches. We just came out of 2 days ago a room filled with supposedly highly intelligent leaders of the Federation of World Stock Exchanges, and they gave you all of these capitalists giving you a conservationist a standing ovation for minutes after. Do you think you're inborn with this?
I think, honestly, which sounds strange even to me, I think I was put on this world with a mission. And the mission is to try and create a better world. And part of that mission is to find a way of speaking to people so that they listen rather than get angry and close off their minds and just argue with you. You've got to creep inside to reach the heart. And at the time, you may not know that you've reached the heart. That may happen later. You may never know, but at least you've tried. And I believe I was given this power for some reason which I can't understand. And it's, for me, I'm just little Jane, born as a very little girl in England, born before World War II, very little money, very ordinary family. And now, look at me now. And so the only way I can deal with it is to understand there's two Janes. There's this one talking to you now, just me. And then there's this icon that's somehow grown out of me, and I have to work very hard to keep up with the icon.
Yes, I've witnessed that over and over, and sometimes, honestly, Jane, I feel a kind of pain in my heart because I see how hard you have to work to keep up with that other Jane. And I know that a big motivation for you is because you don't want to disappoint the people who have come, many of them from faraway places, to see you. And because they've projected onto the iconic Jane some kind of magical power that I know what you call ordinary Jane is constantly trying to match up to. Do you ever get tired? Okay, no, that's not the right question. I know you get tired. How do you keep going? Don't you have days when you think, okay, sod it, bye everybody. I'm not going for another meeting, giving another talk. And yeah, what goes on in your mind when all that happens?
There's moments when I think, why on earth should I go on doing this? But I can't. I was given a mission, and as long as I live on this planet, I have to try and fulfill that mission. And also, I'm an extremely obstinate person. I don't like giving up, and there have been many obstacles in my life where I could have given up, but I've always refused. And I think some power has been given to me to enable me to refuse.
You mentioned in our private chats some time ago that you think this might be some kind of a divine mission, because you spoke about it was a library box, a Bible box.
A Bible box, yeah.
Would you mind to share that story? Because I think that's such a fantastic story.
Yeah, it is. Well, first of all, let me say, I grew up as a Christian. My family, my grandfather was a congregational minister, but my mother was so wise, and she would always say, "You believe in God because you've been brought up as a Christian, but you might have been brought up as a Muslim or a Buddhist or any of the other religions, and there can only be one supreme spiritual power, and what we call that spiritual power doesn't matter." So that's the grounding I had from my mother. Well, my grandmother was married to the congregational minister, and she was deeply in love with him. She was much younger than him, and he died long before her. It was actually very sweet because she kept every letter he'd written to her, tied up with a red ribbon, and on the night she died, she put these on her chest with a message, "Please send these with me to my long rest," which was so charming. But anyway, beyond that, she had what was called a Bible box. And they were platitudes. They came from the Bible, but they were all, if you do this, you'll get rewarded in heaven. They were all very sweet. And I thought the Bible's not like that. The Bible has, some pretty stern, tough messages. So I was 13 years old, and we had to have lights out at a certain time. And I wanted this to be a surprise for my grandmother. So I read every single book of the Bible under my bedclothes at night with a torch. And from that reading, I made these little strips of paper this long and that tall. And in tiny, neat letters, I wrote out the text that I picked. And on the back, I put chapter and verse. And I rolled them up. And I had 6 little matchboxes. And I glued them together, so it was a little chest, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. And I put nativity paper around it. And each of the little matchboxes was filled with tiny rolls of these texts. And so, of course, my grandmother wept when she got it, but we still have it.
You still have it today, yes?
We still have it today in the house where I grew up, where my sister lives permanently, and I go between tours. And 3 times, not just once, not just twice, but 3 times, when we pull out a text, we put it back in a different drawer. It's never the same. And I have pulled out 3 times when I'm about to set off on another tour. And my sister says, "Oh, have a text." And I pulled out the text that says, He who has once set his hand to the plough and turneth back is not fit for the kingdom of heaven. So Judy says, okay, off you go. No more grousing. 3 times.
So you feel very strongly that this is your mission and this is your life's work.
Yeah.
I have run out of
Oh,
questions.
thank God.
Thank you, Jane.
Well, it's been a great chat, TP, and lovely being back in Malaysia. And thank you for what you've done to grow Roots and Shoots.
Thank you, Jane, for this chat and all the chats that we've had over Zoom, over COVID, over the years. But truly, truly, from the bottom of my heart, you've changed my life, and for the better. And many times, when beep happens, when challenges present themselves, I automatically turn to what you say. I don't particularly have anything in mind that you say that helps me. It's just reminding who you are and what you've done, and what a pure, pure soul you are. All that just gives me great energy, and I'm like, okay, brush it off, go for a run, and carry on.
But the main message I'm sure you always carry in your heart from me or someone else, every day you live, you make an impact, and choose wisely what sort of impact you make.
100% agreed. Let's go and get some durian.
Durian indeed.